Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith. Welcome to the Grow Tent, everybody. You have found the best one channel on YouTube, man. The place where we simplify the approach for you so everyone can learn how to grow. We make it so simple, even I can understand. So I'm going to listen and learn right now.
Woo! What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Crow Tent. We got a great episode for you today. So we had a pretty interesting question come in, and it was about like damage on leaves or deficiencies on leaves, and when to start worrying about them, when to not worry about them, etc., etc. I thought, well, I don't really usually like talking about deficiencies on plants because to a new person, it's very hard for them to distinguish between an actual deficiency and what is causing the plant to show damage on the leaves because of something else they're doing, not because of something the plant is deficient in. So it's one of these topics where you don't see me broach the subject a lot because you'll see some people, they'll be like, oh, if you have these spots on your leaves, it means you need to add this. Or if you have, your leaves are this color, it means you need to add this. And I mean, honestly, 99 times out of 100, it has nothing to do with an actual deficiency, and it has more to do with you're abusing one of the big three problems: water, light, food. That is causing those damaged spots or those deficiency spots to actually show up whenever it's not actually the problem. It'd be like if you had a really bad cough because you had pneumonia, and you're like, oh, well, you've got a really bad cough. Here's some Hall's, throat lozenges. That'll fix it. That will not fix it because the root cause of why you are coughing is because you had pneumonia, and you need steroids and antibiotics, which would actually fix it. So they call that treating the cough instead of the cold. The real reason the plant is having these problems. So I thought today we would talk about that. This subject could kind of get very detail oriented, so I'm going to try to keep it not, because I could deep dive pretty substantially into this. But for a newer person, the main cause of their damaged leaves or anything of the sort, or ugly leaves or deficient leaves, is actually because of problems they'll have with the big three. But today we're going to talk about what we're looking for when we decide if there's a problem or if this is just a normal phenomenon that is happening. So the first thing I want to talk about is, hey, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. I literally almost completely forgot to say that. There will be an ad for Mars Hydro. It'll be at the end of the video. I decided I'm going to move the advertisements and stuff to the end of the video, and we'll just get right to talking about the subject we want to talk about at the beginning, though. So if you want the ads, they'll be at the end now. So the intro will now be the outro. But if you want to talk to me more one-on-one or get included in our VIP drops and stuff like that, you can join our Patreon. There'll be a link to that in the video description below. All right, that's enough of that. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is leaf age. So if you're looking at your plant, a lot of people will message me and they'll be like, hey, the bottom of my plant, the leaves are yellowing and dying and falling off. And I'll be like, yeah, that's a normal thing. The leaves at the bottom of the plant are the oldest. They are the oldest part of the plant. What people have to remember is these plants are living things. They do not last forever. So the leaves that are at the bottom, which are generally, because the plants grow up and out like that, well, at least they should if you're shaping them correctly, the leaves that are at the bottom are no longer efficiently gathering light anymore because there's a huge umbrella of leaves that are over the top of them that are now not allowing them to get the light that they used to get. Well, in nature, there are no free rides. In nature, if you are not pulling your weight, what you are supposed to be doing, the plant does not need you, and you are therefore a waste of energy. And what will happen is the plant it'll pull all the nutrients out of those fan leaves, because as we've talked about before, the fan leaves are like reserve fuel tanks for the plant. Yes, they do that is the main place where photosynthesis in the plant takes place. But there's also a bunch of stored nutrients in those leaves. Well, in nature, not only is there no free rides, there's also no wasting. So instead of just throwing that leaf off, what they will do is they will suck all the nutrients out of it. The leaves will turn yellow there at the bottom, and then eventually brown and fall off. And after the plant has pulled everything it needed out of it, then it discards it. So I will get people message me all the time like, oh man, the leaves at the bottom of my plant are all dying. Well, that's good. You've made an appropriate canopy above them, and the plant has no need of them down there anymore. So congratulations, you're shaping your plant correctly, and you've gotten it big enough that it no longer needs those bottom older leaves, and it is making new stuff and redirecting its energies up top where it can be used correctly. So that's always emergency number one that's not really an emergency. So that's one of the main ones I want to talk about, because I get a lot of emailed pictures where people are freaking out like, oh my God, my plant, the leaves are dying. They're just fine, okay? I promise you. The next one is these leaves, just like anything else, they can be damaged without a way me and you wouldn't think about a leaf being damaged. But one good thing that we have in our tents is proper airflow. Well, airflow can also damage these leaves, but it's a worthwhile bit of damage that it will cause. So what you'll notice is your leaves that are by your tower fan or by your fans, they'll get these weird messed up spots that don't look like any kind of deficiency you've ever seen, and they don't look like nutrient burn. You're like, what is going on with these plants? With these leaves on this plant over here, something's happening with it, and it's not. What happens is we have our fans, especially whenever we are later in flower, we have them turned up so that the air can push through the canopy, so we avoid powdery mildew. So as we turn that fan speed up, the leaves that are on those plants right here, they get rustled together, and they'll start going back and forth over the top of each other. Well, on the top surface of these leaves is a waxy coating, and that waxy coating protects the cell of the leaf. Under a microscope you can see all the individual cells. Well, there's a wax coating on top of that leaf, and as the fan, as it's rotating around, pushes them back and forth, this leaf right here will just rub off the waxy coating on the top of the leaf. Well, once that protective waxy coating is gone, what is underneath, the cells underneath, are now exposed to the elements, and they will die. So they will just turn yellow and then brown, just like the ones below, and they will die. And so it causes a lot of people to freak out. I'm like, hey, it's just wind damage. No big deal. And they're like, yeah, but the leaves aren't all pretty. And I'm like, all right, I understand, but you have to understand the cost of keeping the airflow down, or the airflow up, and keeping powdery mildew out of our tents, and letting these plants get enough fresh air. The cost is some of the leaves that are by the fan are going to get ugly, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's not a big deal. It won't cost you any yield. The plant doesn't care about it. Those leaves, they will function until there's too much damage. Then guess what? The plant will pull the remaining nutrients out of them and discard them. Another thing that I get from people all the time is like, well, if I have a damaged leaf, should I just pull it off? And my answer is, I don't, unless they become a hindrance, or if they're on the back of the plant, or if they're on the back of the tent. It's a place that I don't normally get to, and it's one of the days where I'm like crawling under the plants, like lollipopping or whatever. Then probably yes, because what I don't want to do is have a bunch of that stuff fall off, and then I've got to crawl in there a second time and do it. So my answer for that, should you pick them off, is maybe. Do you have to? No. If you're already back there and the leaves are falling off, or and they're making a mess, yeah, go ahead and strip them off. You're not going to hurt anything. Matter of fact, the plant's just going to regrow them in 2 weeks. You couldn't even tell you pulled all the leaves off. That was another thing somebody yelled at me about. They said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. If you pull leaves off in flower, they stay off." No, they don't. You know how much I defoliate my big mother plants whenever I'm spraying them with colloidal silver, because it makes my job so much easier to spray the stalks of the plant if the big fan leaves aren't in the way. I strip them every 2 weeks while I'm doing this, and I have to because the freaking leaves regrow just like they normally would. If a deer comes by and eats a bunch of the leaves off the plant, you think the plant's just like, well, I'm in flower. sorry, the dang deer ate my leaves. I'm just going to not have these big fan leaves. No, that's not the way it goes. So that was a silly comment, that whoever left that for me. But thanks for leaving a comment. Another thing, or not another thing, but like the next point that I talk about is the people, like, let's say you don't have your fans, or your plant's not by the fan, it's on the other side, and they're like, well, I'm getting these, ugly spots on these leaves. This is probably the one that I calm a lot of people down with. What I like to say is you have to take an overall picture of the plant. So if you go outside and look at any tree or bush or anything like that, are all the leaves perfect? No, never. They are never all perfect. Once again, these plants are living beings. Everything is not going to be running at 100% efficiency. Everything, your soil might not have the exact mix that they are looking for, so plants will instantly turn to their leaves to pull stuff that they are looking for. That does not mean that you are underfeeding them. If you look at any plant on the planet, they will have fantastic looking leaves and ones that are ugly. The main thing that I want you to pay attention to is the overall picture of the plant. If I look at a plant, and let's just say our plant only has 10 leaves. This way we'll make it simple. I know cannabis plants get way more than 10 leaves when they get older. But just for the simplicity's sake of this percentage game, if I look at a plant and out of the 10 leaves, 3 are ugly and 7 are good, that is not a plant that I am worried about. The overall ratio is not bad. The majority of the plant is healthy, so you just keep going. Now, on the flip side of that coin, if you're looking at that same plant and 3 of the leaves are good, but 7 are bad, so you can see we have flipped the scales. Now there is something that needs addressing. Now there is something that is going on with the plant. And whether this is 90-10 split or 70-30 split, 50-50, I don't think I've ever seen a 50-50 plant. Usually it's one way or the other, and it's pretty noticeable. Whenever the tables have turned and the majority of the plant looks sick, now we're dealing with a sick plant. There's a old saying when it comes to this. It's problem with a few leaves, no problem with plant. Problem with lots of leaves, problem with plant. And so whenever you're dealing with a healthy plant that has some leaves that don't look the best, it is a normal phenomenon, and it is no reason for you to freak out. You're like, oh, I got spots on the plant. 3 of these leaves out of the 10 have got spots. I've got a deficiency. When most of the time you do not have a deficiency. I'm not saying it never happens, but the majority of people do not water these plants correctly. You water these plants incorrectly, even if it's by a little bit, the deficiencies will show up, and it's not because of something that is deficient in the root zone. It is because you are mistreating, whether you've turned your lights up too fast and the leaves can't keep, or the roots can't keep up, so they turn to the leaves. You can put all the nutrients you want in there, the root system can't keep up with the demand that the lights are asking for. Or rather, you have given them too much food. Yes, if you give them too much food, you will have what's called nutrient burn. It makes your leaves ugly, which then a lot of people are like, oh, look, the plant is eating the leaves. I need to give them more. That is not what that means. And you actually just further the circle, which will cause more leaf damage because of extra nutrient burn. Or then the light ones, you start off with getting tips and stripes on the leaves, and then you end it with putting more nutrients in, and now you're dealing with too much light and too many nutrients. Now, that's not to say that there's not cases when more nutrients is better, like if you're running real CO2, not the little bottles or bags, that's junk. But if you're running a real CO2 system, then yes, you can turn these things up. But if you are new, you should not be messing with CO2 until, I like to tell people, when you've had 3 completely full gardens. When you've had 3 full gardens, your canopies look like mine. They are, every trellis net is full, giant colas in each one. End to end of your garden is completely full. Once you can do that 3 times in a row consistently, okay, now we'll start talking about CO2. But we're getting off track. Relax. calm down. Focus. It makes you stronger. So, the majority of problems you're going to be having with your leaves are not from deficiencies. And what I don't want you to do is be like, oh, look, we've got a deficiency in these leaves, whether it's because they're at the bottom or because they're over by the fan or because you have turned up the lights too soon. I've warned you about that many times. Or because you're watering too often. Or because you give them too much food. What I don't want you to do is freak out, look up what, oh, my leaves are doing this. This is deficient in. What I don't want you to do is do that and then go to the store to buy something to rectify the low nutrient profile that is in your soil, when generally that is not it. On the rare occasions it will be, but I'm telling you right now, 1 out of 100 it will be that. 99 times out of 100 it will be probably with one of the 3 majors, or like I said, it's an old leaf at the bottom, it's over by the fan, which will all cause leaf damage. As you can see, we could talk about this subject for probably 2 hours and I wouldn't run out of things to say, because this is one of the reasons that I don't do a ton of videos on nutrient deficiency. Let me put my quotes up. Nutrient deficiencies, because they're just, it's never, with the amount of nutrients people push, even though I tell them not to, with the amount of nutrients that's already in your soil, with the amount of nutrients that generally people are just dumping into their plants, it's never a deficiency. I can't remember the last time I talked to somebody on a call. I do 40 to 60 of them a week. I cannot remember the last time I was on a call and it was an actual deficiency. So, all right, I've talked about, this is going to be a 20-minute freaking video. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Hope everybody has a fantastic week coming up. It's almost, we're heading towards summer, baby. It's nice and warm, except for my people out in Australia and New Zealand. You guys are heading into winter, so I'm sorry about that. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next time. GT out. Appreciate it. What else? Oh, let's roll this ad for Mars Hydro, and we'll be back in a minute.
Woo! What's up, guys? If you're looking for any kind of new light, new tint, exhaust fans, filters, anything of the sorts, make sure you check out Mars Hydro. They have been the main sponsor of the channel since we hit 500 subscribers. And as you can see, we have a lot more than that now. If you would like an extra discount at checkout, make sure you use the code WTTGT. It doesn't matter if you do capital letters, lowercase letters, whichever. Any of them will work, but you have to use the link in the video description below and then put in the code at checkout, and it will give you a nice discount at checkout. Who doesn't want an extra discount? And remember, guys, no matter what size tint you have or area you have to cover, Mars Hydro makes a light that will work for you with some of the best LEDs and diodes and drivers and ballasts on the market. You can pick up one of these lights to cover exactly what you need and exactly where you need it at an economical cost. Use the code below